So we're really going to zero in on this concept development block, which is where we can get more language in with the math. So first I'll just read through quickly and think aloud. Show you what I'm thinking as I read through directions for things like this that are made for a wide range of students. All right, so the students are gathering. I found this drawing on a piece of paper on the floor. It went with someone's word problem from the week. Does anyone know which one it went to? Look through your problem sets with a partner and you can figure it out. All right, so there is a visual, so I like that. All right, we're talking about that. Our very beginners may not understand what's going on, but there's enough visual that if they're working with a partner, they can do some matching. So I think that part will go okay. Which problem does this tape diagram go with? Okay, here's an opportunity to add in some language development there. As always, it would really depend on the proficiency level of my students, what kind of supports I give them. This would definitely become small group talk or partner talk. And I would focus on which problem does this tape diagram go with. So just thinking off the top of my head, if I have some intermediates, I think this diagram, one thing I notice, I'll finish my sentence in a second because it just popped in my head. One thing I notice here is that the vocabulary is inconsistent. So you want to be careful of that while you're working. So it says display the tape diagram here. And here it says I found this drawing. Do you know which one it went to? See if you can figure it out. Then it comes back to tape diagram. So you want to be careful with that. Stick with one explanation or use both, or put something up that says tape diagram equals drawing. Think about how you're going to read those so it's less confusing. I think this diagram, I should say tape diagram because that's what the question says. I think this tape diagram goes with blank. Now I'm not sure how they're identifying the problem. I would have to know more if it's like problem set A, problem set B, or earlier it talks about, or later it talks about problem sets by names. I might need to give a little more guidance here depending on how those diagrams are named, but I don't know right now. I think this tape diagram goes with blank because. So this lesson goes on. The tape diagram goes with a problem about Shanika's tower. So I may have wanted to use Shanika or the other names in my previous example. Explain how the reference aligned with the problem, right? So we're talking through it just like we did. And it says, they both sound like they could match this tape diagram. This is a tape diagram for a problem from yesterday's lesson. Which problem does this match? So here's another opportunity for interaction. It's asking you to show models and demonstrate, so that's awesome. Language supports there. Which problem does this match? Which problem does the tape diagram go with? So all of these questions still match the language frame that we did originally. Here's where there's an explanation. So here is another opportunity for discourse here. With your partner, try to come up with a different story that could go with this tape diagram. Okay, you can use your tape diagram template while students are discussing, circulate, and listen. We're going to insert, all right, we're This lesson to me skips a big step for all students, but especially for our English learners. Before we go and write our problem, discuss, circulate, listen, all of that, we need to put some supports in here. Right? So we're asking them to write a different problem. That's a different task than talking about the tape that was found on the floor. So we need a new set of supports in here. I'm going to slide down to the bottom where there's a little space here. So come up with a different story. In this lesson, there is, let me find it. In this lesson, there is this guidance here that kind of gives an idea of how they're going to write a story. Use the tape diagrams to write a variety of word problems. Use the word bank if needed. Remember to label your model. So they give one, and then this goes on and on where they can write more. This is a good place also, again, for some language expectations and modeling. Also, a little twist on sentence patterning could help here. So if we're doing this one together, this isn't enough support. It's a good support, but it's not enough support. So maybe our problem's going to say there are blank, blank. Now you may have students who've got it and send them off and go. But there are some who are going to need a stronger model. So there are, and your number's going to go here, and your noun is going to go here. This is a takeoff of sentence patterning. Here it has their nouns that they can use. All right, so there are 14, and it doesn't say what. So what do we want it to be? There are 14, let's pick flowers. There are 14 flowers. And my little quick support for my beginning students. There are 14 flowers. Blank, 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 blank. Right, here we go, sentence patterning. So this is a person here, right, who, somebody, and then the verb, and then the number, and then your noun again. So there are 14 flowers. We'll just use Tamika because she was in that last problem. Tamika, and we have to pick a verb. Tamika, let's do collect. Right, so it's Tamika, so we're going to have Tamika collect. Hopefully they'll help you correct that. Tamika collects. Our next number is 5, and we're still talking about Tamika collects 5 flowers. That's a bad flower right there. All right, there's my flower. Then the question that is modeled throughout this lesson is how many blank does Tamika have? And this is going to be the noun. So it kind of gets into like one of those Mad Lib type scenarios. So our noun is going to stay the same. How many flowers does Tamika have? And we can finish that with Tamika has Tamika has 19 flowers. All right, so here's our model. It's a little bit higher than sentence patterning. We're getting into problem patterning or paragraph patterning. So now let's take this model and we're going to change it up now. So let's now try, let's just go right over here and try goldfish. There are 14 goldfish. Tamika, do you want to put a different name? Let's say Tom. And Tom is going to, well, I don't want Tom to eat the goldfish. Tom is going to, let's say he's going to draw. That's better than eating them. Okay. There are 14 goldfish. Tom draws 5 goldfish. How many goldfish does Tom have? Tom has 19 goldfish. Now, go with your partner, use this model, and create another problem of your own. If that goes well for students, then you say, okay, now you don't have to use the model. You can free write, right? However you want to write the problem. If you're more comfortable sticking with our model, then stick with our model, but do a couple more. And that gives you a chance for that sentence level support within that concept development time of the lesson. So this is our goal toward the end. There was more of this lesson in here. So something like that model is what I would put in here before I tell students to go on their own. So with a partner, try to come up with a different story. Model first. Use your frames. Use your patterning. Then, while students are discussing, circulate and listen. Then you have a place to refer them to. If they get stuck, you say, let's go back to our pattern. Let's go back to our model. And you can kind of talk them back through again. So you have something to refer back to. Here it says, listen to students as they generate their story ideas and choose 3 student math stories to use as samples. Present the stories in the following order. Right, that's great. So now you're going to share out. The students have all been through the process. They have language to use to talk about it. As the students share the problem with the class, redraw the tape diagram, label appropriately. That's great, right? We're putting this label in here, reinforcing. We have visuals going on. Write the accompanying number sentence, good visuals. And they're hearing the same language they heard in the model that we created. All right, now this goes into what was similar in all of these problems. Okay, and what was different. So again, here I would do a quick way for them to start. Blank and blank were similar because, or blank and blank were different because. And again, first teacher model. Problem 1 and problem 2 were similar because both were adding more nouns. Blank and blank were different because they started with a different number in the beginning, or they added a different number of flowers, whatever it may be. This again can be a sentence patterning. Blank and blank are similar because, blank and blank were similar because, blank and blank were similar because, and they can keep filling in reasons. When you run out of reasons, switch to different. So you might have a line of these and a line of these. Have that ready for them as well. All of this could go onto a chart paper, a slide, on the board, however it is you usually do your visuals for your students. And you can have it prepared in order ahead of time. So on your anchor chart, on your support, you want to have your model for how they're going to discuss in the beginning of that lesson. Then you want to have another model, a diagram, tape diagram that's labeled with the number sentence, like that's the redraw part. Then under that, you can have space for blank and blank were similar because, maybe put 3 or 4, I don't know how many reasons why they can come up with, but put a few of those. Okay, now let's talk about different about each one. We have room on our chart for that. And then let's see where we go next. How could knowing the answer to one story problem help you with a different story problem? So here's another conversation that could use a sentence starter or a support of some kind. All right, one problem helps me with another problem because. So let me jot that on here. This is my planning. One problem can help with another problem by or because. Think about what you want them to say. Whenever you're creating your models or your frames, you want to first think about what's your model response. What would be something great that they could say in this at this point, and then we're going to turn that into a frame or a sentence starter for them. Think about the proficiency levels of the students in your class. Are they going to need less support, more support, 1 model, 3 models, and ongoing? All right, then the lesson moves into practice, into the problem set. So students are working on problems. They can use these strategies. So we've talked through a lot of these. This is kind of showing the anchor charts as we talked about, with I would like a little bit more language support than what these give, but they're heading in a good direction. And so the student debrief, you were asked to write various problems, let them do that, and then you have all kinds of things going on in there. Look for misconceptions, misunderstandings. Look for misconceptions and misunderstandings, but also look for language. When students are debriefing, are they using the vocabulary? Right? We want to look at that word or vocab level. Are they using the right vocabulary? Do we need to reinforce that some more? How are their sentences? Are they using our models? Are they creating their own now independently? That's where we want them to get to. Do they need more support? Do they need a simpler version, depending on where they are with their proficiency? And then just really thinking about the big ideas. Were they able to communicate the big ideas? Were they able to participate in this conversation? And that takes you into discourse. So looking for misconceptions, misunderstandings in the math, but then also looking at what is working in the language and what holes do we have so that we can model that a little stronger on the next round. So there is my think aloud for how I would build more language development into a prepackaged, published lesson when I have students who need just a little bit more support and language development than what the publisher has given. I hope this is helpful. I'm going to show you my finished anchor chart now that I would use to start with, and then of course probably change immediately after the lesson to include the things that students brought up that I forgot. So here is what my anchor chart would look like when we get started the first time around.